morning, everyone. I'm going to call to order a special meeting. The arrival of our chair, Stan Westman, who will be attending. You'll note we only have 4 board members. This is not a quorum. Therefore, we cannot take any action and take any votes. But I understand we're at risk of losing one of the board members present at 11:30 if we don't commence. So I am going to commence this board meeting. It's the first agenda item is the presentation of the limited variance request on road correction minimum standard 1-17 B12, that being the exclusion of inmates ages 18 to 21 from punitive segregation. This is the Department of Corrections variance request, so I'll ask the department to present the request, please.
Thank you. Just because we've been saying I'll stay seated, but in general, everyone knows that we've been making strides to end punitive segregation. A condition of that for us has been to develop the alternative housing that we would use that encompasses both the second chance, true, as well as the new secure unit. As we have started to use second chance and true, we still have not finished the construction of the secure unit, making it difficult for us to move people out of punitive setting. At the same time, I want to inform the board of the continued progress that we're making in terms of limiting the use of punitive segregation. As of today, we had only 23 young adults in punitive segregation. By Monday or Tuesday, we should only have about 17. So we are continuing to work aggressively to reduce the number of people who are actually in punitive segregation, limiting it to those who have violent tendencies, people who we would put in secure unit. But for the fact that we do not have the construction completed, we need to ask for the variance to increase the time and make sure.
Where are these 17 people? Where were they?
3 South and OBCC.
Just OBCC?
Yes. So there's currently construction has continued. We've been putting in the welding in the walls. We have a couple of issues that continue to persist, including the creation of the rec yard. We are awaiting work from our partners to actually lay the asphalt and construct the rec yard that is dedicated to that secure unit that would limit movement. It would be directly connected to the secure unit in GRVC. Secondarily,
Can you tell us a little bit about more specifically what the nature of that problem is? I have been out to the secure unit. I have seen the construction underway. I have seen the plans that have been posted, and I've seen what will be the rec yard, and nothing had been done the last time I had seen it. So
yes,
what's the problem you're having?
We are currently coordinating with another agency to actually come in to do the asphalt laying. That requires us to get on their schedule, and it is not something that we personally can control. It is currently with the Department of Transportation to come in to lay the asphalt for us, and we're working to kind of get that coordination, but with their other priorities throughout the city, they've got to come in and lay down that, and after that, we would then put in the fencing and the basketball court and other.
How long have you been waiting for that?
For a couple of weeks now.
Several. How long? I mean, did they say they were going to do it previously? When did you ask them to do it?
We've asked them if they're finalizing an MOU to work with us on this.
We've been
Just trying to understand how long you've been trying to do this and that it hasn't happened.
For the last month, we've been talking. We've had formal conversations about finalizing the MOU, putting ourselves on their schedule, and having them come in to actually lay down the asphalt. We should not take more than about 2 days, and then another week to let that settle and kind of put in the fencing.
But you're not on the schedule yet.
No. In addition, obviously, after construction of the walls in the secure unit, some issues were observed where extra fencing and plexiglass had to be put in to prevent climbing, essentially, to the ceiling. Whereas one side was built only after the construction was completed, did people notice that actually that is another area we have to kind of add extra fencing because it gave an opportunity for young adults to climb from one tier to the next. So there are construction issues that have arisen on those where the majority of the construction is moving apace. We have had issues in the past, recently of the DOT kind of asphalt laying, the construction of the extra wall to prevent the climbing, the extra doors that were added for fire safety and emergency entrance that had to be placed in. So those were all efforts that extended the timeline, and for which we are asking this variance, essentially. We would like the safe alternative built before moving people. As of this time, as I've reported, the number is lower, and we continue to move forward with reducing the number in Punitive Seg. However, while we are also maximizing both second chance and true, we have moved over 40, 50 people in through second chance and true, and some people have been discharged back into general population is going through that process. A couple have not fared as well, and so 3 or 4 were moved back into Punitive Seg because of behavior while in true and second chance. We still keep that option as something to kind of move back and forth. We're going to open a true unit soon, so we'll have an additional true unit, but still we need the security to properly move people forward. So that is...
Just remember the 28-bed true unit, secure unit in GRVC.
32 bed.
I'm sorry, 32 bed, 4 8-bed unit, that's it.
Yes.
And it's 17 people that you expect as of Monday who are not, who may be in that unit.
Maybe. They're not
They're not in true or second chance, so.
They're
Currently-
23 currently.
They're 23 currently.
Right.
Through whether just running out their time or through discharge, by Monday, we should be down to about 17. Of that population, a limited number of that population will be moved to secure. Some others may be moved to true and second chance once the true is open. Others may just go back out to general population, depending on whether or not the treatment team, when they assess the files, kind of makes a determination on whether or not they are more on the secure side or more on giving them a chance and then working through them in an individualized plan. But we'll be picking, we have started to look at that population already in expectation of closing punitive segregation and opening of secure. But at the same time, we did ask for this time to also enable us to kind of slowly transition people in. We might take, 4 and then 4, rotate it in at a certain schedule.
Out of all the things on the punch list, you guys, you ticked off, which are the ones that are absolutely critical to get done by the end of the 30-day variance, and which ones can you have some latitude with?
Well, the fencing, reinforcing the fencing and making it so it's not climbable, those are priorities because that assists at managing the inmates in the quads. The rec yard, we have been working with the warden to develop an alternative location to have congregate recreation as an interim until the rec yard is complete. So the rec yard would not impede us opening it up. We would just relocate the recreation to another part within the facility. So primarily it is the actual infrastructure of ensuring the quads that we're going to use are meet our requirements for security and safety purposes.
And now, is that your responsibility? Do you guys have control over that? If the rec yard, I'm hearing you're dependent on the contractor, but these other issues, how much control do you have?
We have a lot more control in that area.
Okay.
We are split. So
Okay.
part of the fencing is with the contractor, and part of the fencing we're taking on our own, in order to kind of make up the difference, essentially. So we have more control because we can throw more at the fencing.
Are you aware of anything else that we haven't talked about that could go wrong, such that you would miss the 30-day window, be back here again for another?
What we've tried to limit for any kind of delay is to the construction, for which we have viewer control. We have moved forward with the training we've selected the staff for secure. In GRVC, we've already conducted cognitive behavioral therapy training for those. We have program counselors who are identified. Obviously, we're working on the policy side, so those should not impede. We have focused primarily, and this request comes primarily on the heels of notifications on construction infrastructure issues. So those are the things, as Deputy Commissioner referenced, our biggest concerns.
So you don't think there will be, you do not think you would miss
I
it?
do not think.
Yeah, okay.
If someone is in the solitary confinement right now, a young adult, and their sentence was supposed to run out, say you're open up tomorrow, and their sentence was supposed to run out after that, and you place them in secure, they would have to serve the 84 days in secure?
They would follow the program that's listed as far as the phase program within Secure.
And are people who are, say, who are discharged from solitary confinement today, over this weekend, will any of those people be placed in secure?
If they
Based
should-
upon their current, no change, no new
they
action on
behave
their
well
part?
after this.
If they do nothing else differently between now and when the secure opens, could they be placed in secure?
It depends on where they go. If they go to one of our enhanced restraints, if they're an enhanced restraint inmate and they go to an enhanced restraint house, they may be looked at for secure placement. But if they're discharged from punitive segregation and returned to general population, probably not unless their behavior warrants it while in that general population setting.
Not but for the fact, if you're asking if a person is released from punitive segregation, they've served their time, and they go back to general population and they behave well, they're not going to be placed in secure. If they are a person who comes out of punitive segregation, but has continued behavior and is placed in enhanced restraints, or is a special population because of that concern, they might be
If they're
considered by a
released, if they're
treatment plan.
released from the solitary unit, and they don't have anything ongoing, would they be placed in enhanced restraint?
If they have nothing ongoing, so there's no, probably not.
So it would be only new actions on their part which would result
Well,
in...
unless they were for
No, right.
enhanced restraints when they went in.
Previously.
If they've already
Yeah,
gone
if
through
there's
the
an
process
ongoing-
of being reviewed for
Yeah,
enhanced
if
restraints,
there's
they
an
would go
ongoing,
back.
but if there's no, yeah, if they're already been
If they've already been processed
Yes.
into enhanced restraint, you...
considered.
And have you begun using the program counselors in solitary unit?
Started using,
Are the program counselors working with these 23 young men?
no.
When do you expect that they will be helping them out?
Well, I think right now we're talking about what we would do, and potentially we'll have program counselor rounding in the punitive seg population over the time of this variance.
Let me just note for the record that our chair, Stan Bresnik, has come in, so we do in fact have a forum of the Board of Correction. At the Executive Director's request, I started to chair the meeting. So Stan, I can turn this over to you. We're on agenda item number 1, where the department has presented their variance request, and the board members have been asking some questions. At the conclusion of that, we'll take public comment. I have a couple of questions in terms of identification of the inmates and the due process. When do you anticipate doing that? Because it sounds like we want to start moving the inmates over as soon as it's safe to do so and the construction is completed. So when do you anticipate that process?
I don't have a solid date. I would assume probably the next 2 weeks or so.
Okay. And this is something I'd like clarification on, because obviously we, just for the community, the Board of Correction has been given a draft copy of the directive for secure, which was one of the conditions on the variance for secure, that we be given that before anybody be transferred. But I do just want to ask what, I know there's a federal monitor that's involved with respect to adolescents and young adults age 16 to 18. I recall regarding the directive on True and Shoe that the federal monitor's approval was necessary before you were able to finalize that. May I just ask, so that we're clear what the role of the federal monitor will be with respect to your consultation and/or possibly any approval in terms of the secure directive?
Well, the department has been working with the monitor in consultation and has been very transparent about the directives that it has drafted, including True and Second Chance, and is likewise going to be transparent about the directive regarding secure. In fact, a copy of the directive has been provided to the monitor. And so we've worked collaboratively with the monitor. We will continue to work collaboratively with the monitor. My understanding, and clearly with the Second Chance and True, the monitor supported with the department's the efforts in terms of Second Chance and True. And we would expect that after some back and forth, when we hear back from the monitor and we're willing to incorporate whatever good ideas they have into the directive, that we would be able to do the same in secure. So whether or not the consent judgment requires monitor approval is really not an issue at this point in time because we are working collaboratively with the monitor.
And just as a sort of related issue, we obviously know we're all trying to end punitive seg and have much safer, secure, humane alternatives to punitive seg for this population. You have True and Shoe that's operating, and we're getting ready to launch Secure. It's going to be very important to be able to measure the compliance with your own policies as well as the board being able to measure compliance with our minimum standards. So my question is, are you in the midst of, before you launch Secure, with designing the performance metrics for Secure as well as True and Shoe so that we'll be able to effectively measure these?
Yes, and obviously we'll be tweaking them as well. As a baseline, obviously, we kind of started off with 3 broad buckets. Obviously, the first was kind of program participation and kind of enrollment in the treatment plans and their kind of compliance with the treatment plan and their progress through that treatment plan. The second was broadly just the violence and incidences that would happen in the areas themselves. And the third was actually on the staff level, obviously ensuring that from a training and a protocol level that they were all kind of being met. So broadly, we have those. I think that as we move forward with these, because we do have a draft directive, we have to learn from this, we'll be kind of highlighting other metrics that we may want to use and others that may not be as effective. Just because you participate doesn't necessarily mean you're getting good outcomes, for example, or just because you have a policy. So we'll change those. But yes, we've already started thinking about that.
Any question, Bob?
Yeah, I have a question. I'd like to have a discussion about recreation for these 23 men today, 17 men on Monday. I mean, the reason solitary confinement is torturous is because of the amount of time people spend inside their cells by themselves without content. So the end of solitary confinement is when people have congregate activity and are not locked into a cell all by themselves all the time. And it'll be a year and a half since this was when we voted to do this. It's 6 months since you said you were going to do it. I'd like to ask you to change that now and explain. And I understand because we spoke this before that you're going to tell me why you can't do it. But please explain to the board why every one of these people, every one of these young men, can't have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hours a day out of their cells in congregate activity. They're going to have that in a month, you tell us, and you're asking us for a month of a variance, and you say that in 1 month they're going to have congregate recreation. I understand only in groups up to 8, but 8 people will be in congregate recreation. I mean, why now can't you take these 17 people and divide it into 5 groups of 3.5 and give them each 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, 7 hours a day, depending upon what you think is appropriate for them. You know who these people are. These are not, they've been in solitary.
Let me ask you something. Are some of these separatees? Are some of these guys separatees from each other?
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's one of the
Yes.
reasons, right?
Yes.
Yes.
No, I understand, but I'm not, they can be
Okay.
put out at different times.
But that's, I get that, but you're talking about congregate seg. But part of the
That's
issue
what-
is
yeah.
separation.
And
I
the,
think-
and the unit, the punitive seg unit is not designed to permit us to be able to separate these. I mean, this is one of the reasons with Secure we divided up with the 4 quads within the area. So we'd be able to have the inmates to have the congregate day room recreation and congregate recreational activities. Whereas the unit that we currently use, it's a wide open floor plan, and it really prohibits us to be able to do that within our time constraints and our operations.
So at the conclusion of this variance period, that problem will be taken care of?
Yes.
And the issue that Dr. Cohen has raised will be addressed?
It will.
So we're talking about a very short time frame, but it will be addressed?
Yes.
And I think this is something that the board will consider, but obviously, we can expand some individualized rec time because we have that ability. The congregate is the concern because we haven't had, if the structure isn't in place for that, we haven't done any of the classification and gang separation stuff that has to go in the staff.
Again,
appropriately.
within
Yes.
this time
Yes.
frame,
Within
all of
this
that,
time frame.
will be
we
addressed.
won't be
Yes.
having this
And we
discussion
will
again.
continue to try to, I mean, we're moving towards lowering the number too as well, as I hope we've demonstrated, going from the last time I think we reported out 36 or 38, we're down to 23. By Monday or Tuesday, we'll get down to 17. We're moving down and continuing a pace to reduce the people that are actually in the location.
Okay, and before we go to public comment, I'd like to just be able to ask you about some conditions that I'm considering proposing, that I understand that the department may be willing to accept. I know we only got the variance on Tuesday, and I should state for the record, I was encouraging the department to file this for weeks, so that we wouldn't be rushed, would have more time to talk about conditions and the like, and I know there's going to be some public comments, some recommendations for other conditions, and after those comments are made, we'll ask you whether you can do any of those as well. But I understand that the department has essentially stopped, to a great extent, stopped sentencing young adults to punitive seg at this point, but without necessarily agreeing to no longer sentencing it during the next 30 days. My understanding is the department would be willing not to place any young adult in punitive seg for an infraction unless it's actually reviewed and approved by the chief, which is essentially what you're using for a punitive seg override. Is that correct?
Yes.
I also understand that there currently is no backlog
That's
for
right.
punitive seg. So those that have any owed time are there right now, and you're working to move them out. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay, I also understand during the pendency of the variance, you would be prepared to have program counselors come in, provide daily rounds, as well as offer counseling services to those young adults that are still in punitive seg waiting to transfer
They choose to,
to
yes.
secure.
That-
Is that right?
That's right.
Certainly it would make sense to help with the transition too, so that
Sure.
these young men are informed what the plan is and they can start being advised and preparing for the transition.
Yes.
Now, in terms of the individualized daily recreation, how much additional time for those remaining on June 1st can you offer to get them, try to get them out of cell and give them some fresh air and exercise?
What we would have to do is take a look at exactly what our census is, what our count is, given the rec areas that we have available. At least off the surface, we could probably do at least another hour a day for each of those
So we could agree to
inmates.
2 hours then, as a
Yes.
variance condition? So at least they'd be out of cell
Yes,
for those 2 hours?
yes.
Okay, and obviously you can offer more to the extent.
It could be more if we have the availability to do that, yes.
Can I just ask why, I know in Rosie's, the warden has now combined the RHU and the punitive seg unit. That was my understanding last time I was at Rosie's. So all the young and all the women that were in punitive seg in city corrections had 3 hours out of cell. As a result of that warden's decision, I understand that the wardens of the different facilities have some discretion to do that. Is there a reason you're not doing that for the men and the young adults in particular?
It's basically a census-related issue. There's less female inmates who are in that status to begin with, in compared to the male population.
How many are?
I don't have that count with me.
And just the last proposed condition, and I know Legal Aid will be asking for this, and we'll discuss some of their other recommendations, is that during the pendency of the variance, the department will provide the board with a weekly report commencing on Friday, June 3rd, and on every Friday thereafter, of the status of construction of the security units, which shall include A, all steps necessary to complete construction, including the granting of all permits and other approvals required to open these units, and B, the adequacy of staffing and training levels for the secure. Is that correct? Okay. Stan, let me turn it over to you. Do you want to go to public comment now?
Well, let's do that because I think we're under some time. Sarah Kerr? Sure.
Small room, top here.
It would be good, I think, if you stood. Would that be okay?
Sure. Good morning, Sarah Kerr from the staff attorney with the Prisoners' Rights Project of Legal Aid. I provided you with comments and recommendations yesterday by letter, and Judge Campbell has mentioned that I'm not actually gonna go over everything I said. I trust that it was read, I know it was distributed immediately, and I thank the board staff for doing that so promptly and getting it on the web. Enough is enough. It's time to end 23-hour isolated confinement for the 18 to 21-year-olds who are in our city jails. And I'm asking that you end that torture now. I'm asking that you end it today. You know, I understand, I've followed very closely and been very involved in what's been going on, and I appreciate the reduction that has happened. I understand that punitive segregation has changed over this past year and a half, and that is all to the better. But nothing in the variance letter that was posted on, it's Tuesday, and what is said here today suggests to me that there is any reason not to take action now. There is staff, there is training that's been completed, there is some completed construction. There are only 12 people, remember that, these are all people, 12 people who the department believes actually require placement into a secure unit. That means that there are, it was 20, I think it's less now, people that the department believes don't need that kind of placement and don't need to be in punitive segregation. Move them today, okay? Move them now. That means they must be accommodated with something that is an alternative to punitive segregation that is less restrictive than the secure unit. The letter states that that is what they believe. As to opening the secure unit and doing so successfully, no amount of planning and training is going to open anything in the city jails without bumps in the road. That's not the way it works. That's not the way it will happen. And it's time to provide these 12 or fewer people with needed social interaction programs and training. If this requires utilizing more supervisory staff, do it. If it means utilizing more line staff, do it. If it means bringing in the crisis intervention team to wherever these people are currently being housed to interact and do de-escalation, do it. The leadership of the department must finally take these steps and motivate their staff to implement this essential reform successfully. There will be bumps in the road, but do it now. If you are going to grant 30 days, I do ask that the conditions that were discussed today be put in place. At least 7 hours out of cell per day now. Provide congregate recreation. There are congregate yards at OPCC. Utilize your program counselors now. And rounding is not enough. Rounding is not good for mental health care. It's not good for anything. It's a drive-by. It means looking into cells at people and having no confidentiality at all. Do something different with them. Do it now. And I think that you can provide other initiatives now during this period, and I ask that all of that be done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, could you just answer the question about the people who you know don't need to, are not going to be placed in secure? Why can't you remove them?
We don't know, and that's the issue right now. What we're doing is moving people alternatively to places. We had said, ultimately, about 2 weeks ago, that when we looked at the census at that point, we identified anywhere from 8 to 12 people in community seg that could go into secure. But that would require us to kind of work with the treatment team to actually go through and identify those people and develop an appropriate treatment plan and their placement. Some of those may go into second chance, some of those may go into true. Currently, we are actually fully utilizing true. While there might be some space in second chance, not everyone is going to be appropriately moved into second chance. They may need to go into true, and we need to open the next true unit.
But you know there are 6 people who you're going to be released by Monday. Why aren't they being released today?
I mean, I think that just administratively working through kind of where to place people, these are people who are either going to be discharged or coming out. But we're moving along a schedule. We don't want to just willy-nilly move people right now when staff don't have the training and aren't prepared for this. You know, this is already before, that was aiming for the June 1st. So right now, I think 2 separate questions. I think one question you had about just, yes, there is a smaller population. We are working to lower that population as much as possible. And we are trying to use what is there to maintain safety and then ultimately transition those that would have to get into any of the alternatives to punitive seg into the right place. Additionally, taking our claim that we can try to lower this number and that we've tried to identify on a census 2 weeks ago, the 8 to 12, that's a number. We can get the treatment team starting to work on these people, knowing that they may leave. But we have also tried to make sure that when we move these people, we have safe alternatives for wherever we put them, whether that's back in enhanced restraints, back in general population, or the other alternatives to punitive segregation. So for us, it's simply it's a planning effort. I mean, not simply, it's hard. It's actually tough. And in terms of staffing and everything, we've provided a lot of training for the staff in GRVC where we're going to place secure. We can't move those by union rules just over to OVCC to work in punitive segregation just because they have cognitive behavioral therapy. They are assigned to GRVC, that's where they will be, and that's where we focused our training. To provide more training on those cognitive behaviorals, another week of training, which isn't a bad thing necessarily, but at this point I'd like to concentrate our time on getting those staff in GRVC fully trained up on these skills so they can deal with the young adults when they get moved into these housing areas.
But Jeff, how long will it take you and the treatment team to sort of go in for the 26, 23 people who are there now, to go in to do an assessment so that you could begin to identify, these folks won't need to go to secure? Like, how long will it take you to be able to do that? Because I'm trying to think if there's a way in which that process can start now, and within the 30 days you can start to move people out. I mean, you're moving.
Yeah, we're trying to move people out now.
On Monday.
Yeah, I mean, we can start. So where we can, we have made the offers for second chance and treatment. I think that we've reported here along our young adult plan that we've rotated several people. For a majority of those people have either stayed in second chance or moved out to general population. There's a small population that has not done well there and been moved back into punitive segregation. The treatment plans are being developed there, and they're working through the current population. That's what they're doing. So that work is being done, though, from a timing, sir. I can't answer only because I'm not the expert on that, and the team does what they do for every individual. Sometimes it takes a little shorter and a little longer.
What is happening?
It's happening.
So I think the way to proceed is to treat the request as an item, moved and seconded, then discuss individually any amendments to that or conditions which we'll treat as amendments. So let's start with the proposed variance. If someone would move it and second it, we can have
I'll
this.
move the variance. So it's a limited variance commencing on June 1st and continuing through, including June 30th.
So, to expedite things, why don't we state the individual variances? I'm going to assume that our small group is open to discussion of amendments and treating them as items to be considered and discussed. And let's just get into that. So if we could reiterate the items that have been put forth as proposed.
So to the variance, I would propose the first condition, which would be, I move this item as a proposed condition, that being during the pendency of this variance, the department shall not place any young adult in punitive segregation for any infraction unless it is reviewed and approved by the chief of the department.
Okay, just formally, I'm going to ask the department to quickly respond to each. Is this something doable and acceptable to the department?
Yeah, we can do this.
So that's one. Two.
No, I think we have to vote on each.
I know we will. I just want to get the department to respond to each,
Okay.
and then we'll just go.
And the second is during the pendency of this variance, the department shall have program counselors, provide daily rounds, and provide counseling to those young inmates in punitive segregation who wish to avail themselves of the counseling.
Is that acceptable?
We can do this.
That's
I
two.
have a question. Where would that be done?
In the OVCC housing area,
In their cells?
potentially. We'll have to figure this out but yes, it'll probably happen in their cells. It may happen in the day room. I have to figure that out location-wise.
Okay.
Can they be taken out of the cells? Is that a possibility?
In agreeing to this variance right here is kind of our effort to do that, but I don't know the exact location right now.
Well, there's no confidentiality in the cells. I mean, that's not a process of counseling to be talking in front of people in front of their cells. You take people out for medical, you take people out for mental health, you take people out for showers. why can't you take them out to the day room that exists for counseling?
So I just want to make sure that we can do an operational.
Well, you're here,
and-
I mean, you're in charge.
and I'm telling you, I have to go back and take a look at where.
You're saying you can do it, you just don't
Yes.
know where
Yeah.
it's gonna happen.
But you recognize the desirability of not doing it in
Yes,
a more
sir.
or less public way, and you will seek
Yes,
to do it in the most appropriate setting that you can.
absolutely.
And the third is during the pendency of this variance, the department shall provide at least 2 hours of individualized daily recreation to young adults in punitive segregation. Yes?
Okay, that, 3, okay, so let's go back and,
We have one more.
Oh, you have one more.
One more, is during the pendency of this variance, the department shall provide the board with a weekly report commencing Friday, June 3rd, not every Friday thereafter, the status of construction of the secure units, which shall include all steps necessary to complete construction, including the granting of all permits and other approvals required to open these units, and the adequacy of staffing and training levels for the secure.
We can do this.
okay,
I
so,
have one further, which has not been approved by the department, but the board has received copies of these. There are 2 pages, special board meeting, proposed conditions to variance, one with 4 units, one with 7 on them.
what, I'm not following what you want to do here.
We have 2 pages of proposed conditions to the variance. We've just gone through 4 of them. There's another page which has 7, most of which are covered by these 4, but there's an additional one that I would like to.
Oh,
Yes.
please, make it.
Well, that's what I was looking for. That during the pendency of this variance, the department shall implement programs in punitive segregation for young adults which are planned for the secure units, including cognitive behavioral therapy.
We cannot do that. We don't have the officers trained for cognitive behavioral therapy. They're assigned to GRDC, where we're focusing our attention on meeting the requirements of training all of those officers. So, and the treatment teams are also located in GRDC, currently working with Second Chance and True, and preparing to work with the secure units that are going to be placed in that facility.
And those officers have posts in
Yes,
GRDC?
sir.
They've bid for posts, and that's where they are, and they can't, and they,
Those are the posts that have
can they
already
be,
identified.
can they be
and
offered the
trained.
opportunity to go over to OVCC for the pendency of this variance? I mean, if it's, the issue has to do with personnel.
Yeah, the personnel right now, we have, 4 weeks of this variance. It wouldn't make operational sense to try to move those people out over to OVCC and then back into GRVC 3 weeks later, or 2 weeks potentially, because you'd want to have them there ready for when secure is actually open for even the 2 units we might start first.
Can I just say something here? You, on the second proposed condition, which we already talked about counselors being able to provide daily rounds, right? I mean, for 30 days, I think that is sufficient, because starting CBT in that environment is going to be very difficult. As a psychologist, I can tell you, it will be very difficult to do that in the environment. I have not seen it myself, but from what it's described, to try to do that in that environment will be difficult. And to try to do it, after the 30 days would certainly seem more appropriate. For some of the reasons you outlined before, and Dr. Cohen outlined in terms of privacy, confidentiality, those kind of issues. And then the resources. I mean, moving inmates from one place to another requires a lot of resources and time management. And that's difficult. So 30 days, I think we can wait for that, for more intense counseling. As long as they're getting, you're saying they can get counseling, right? Daily rounds if they so, if they choose to. Okay.
All right.
Stan,
Yeah.
can we get on the weekly report in terms of construction, can we get a report out on the 2-hour recreation, the counseling services, who accessed it, whether they accepted it?
How many were offered, yes.
Stanley, you were not here at the beginning of the meeting when Jeff described one of the limitations in getting this thing open is that the Department of Transportation has not yet developed a memorandum of understanding with the department. They've been asking for it for about a month. It has not been, it doesn't exist. We don't know when it will exist, and the opening of the facility of the secure units is based upon the laying of asphalt by the Department of Transportation.
As we have said, that is we laid out, the judge asked for kind of some of the constructions, we
Right.
laid them out, we tiered them, and we can find alternatives.
I'm sorry, I thought you said that you needed to.
No, the recreation
we
yard
laid
is
them all out.
not conditional
Oh,
of
okay.
opening up the unit, because we will find alternative locations within GRVC to have congregate recreation.
We need an MOU to get the asphalt
We
ready.
do, but that is another conversation.
Dan, maybe
Just
you
don't
make
be
a call.
I'm surprised.
I was gonna say.
No, you're dead.
I don't
Well,
think you
Paula
can
used to
stop.
work for me.
They will need recreation take place.
All right.
I'm still waiting, the facility needs to do an assessment of the yard. It will be a congregate location for the inmates and secure pending the completion of the dedicated secure recreation yard. Exact location, I don't have that information, that's up to the command.
All right, on the first, which goes to approval levels, I'm assuming that this was moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on it? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
These are the amendments now. Amendment number 2, does anybody need to hear it again? Again, all those in favor?
All right,
Opposed? Number 3, any discussion? All those in favor?
all right,
Opposed? And Amendment 4, all those in favor?
all right.
And, well, I think the point was made on 5, but I don't think the consensus is there for that. But it's obviously something we'll pay attention to as it unfolds. Now, on the overall variance with the conditions that have been voted as amendments. Any further discussion?
No.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. We will look forward to the reports,
Yes, sir.
and we do expect that this is the period of time where everything gets done, and the ultimate achievement is reached, and we don't have to have discussions about this.
And thank you, Department also, thank you.
And I want to apologize to the board for being late. My calendar said 11.
It's originally 11.